Academia.
Hello and welcome to episode 142 of the My Hero Academia podcast. I'm Kendra, and today with me, as per usual, I have one of our regular guests, James from Kicking Stones podcast and Weeby Jammin'. Say hi.
Hello, it's me, James.
Nice, glad to have you here. And we also have Derek from the Good Friends cast and also Dr. Stonecast.
Hey, how's it going?
Glad to have you on. And then we have special guest, YouTube extraordinaire, probably why a lot of people who are listening now are listening. we have Roger from Rogersbase. Woo!
What is going on? Yeah, I am very, very happy to be here. It's so funny. It's like I've seen so many people underneath the comment section of you announcing me as the guest being like, oh my God, get your popcorn ready. This is going to be a good one. But yeah, it's like I'm kind of here to set the record straight because I think a lot of people think I hate this series just based on certain things that I tweet talking about like why I've been critical of it as of late. But I don't at all. Like My Hero is one of my favorite series in Shonen Jump. And the main reason why I've stopped doing as much regular content because I was covering it, doing, manga reactions every week on the YouTube channel and streaming it every weekend has just been sort of the fandom at large recently has been something that I haven't really been like vibing with. And so I felt, well, I don't want it to destroy my love of this series. So why not just go off and enjoy it on my own? And that's what I've been doing. And it's been great so far. So
Yay. I control your bubble basically and be like, okay.
Exactly.
But I just want to say for people, new listeners, we are critical of the series as well, but I don't know if it lasts to the same, but just a warning. But I think like obviously people are still accepting criticism. I don't know, but let's jump to the news because we have other questions for Roger as well.
And just inserting this into the news after the fact, Caleb Cook, the official translator for My Hero Academia at CD Cubed, decided he already locked his account, but he's kind of decided he's not going to post the threads anymore of talking about My Hero, which is like sad for like us, because I know like we often referenced it on the pod as like we kept saying, check out CD Cubed, check out CD Cubed. But I think it 100% makes sense because he's been getting a lot of very much undeserved hate. I think pretty much everyone on the podcast would agree that it's went way too far. And so you won't really hear us talking about that on this podcast as we recorded this before it happened, but I just wanted to say we definitely support. We think Caleb's awesome. So if you're being mean to Caleb, stop.
But first off, we have the author's comment saying, and Horikoshi has a message for us saying, Tanaka-sensei's summertime rendering has concluded, and it has an anime and a live-action adaptation. Awesome! And I looked it up, and Summertime Rendering is like a mystery horror manga. The first 3 chapters are available for free on Manga Plus, as well as the last 3 chapters. But it's definitely really cool. It's bloody, and like definitely has the horror aspect there as a warning. But it seemed cool. I cannot describe the first chapter without spoiling it. I'm just wondering what his connection is to Tanaka-sensei. Like, how does he know him, or he's just like, oh, it's ending, so I want to celebrate him.
maybe he's just a fan. I mean, if it's also published in Jump, I would imagine that, he sees him as a colleague. So,
because I think also one of his previous series of Tanaka-sensei's was in Jump. But I'm excited for the anime, for whatever it is. And then in some other news, more like America-centric, we have for the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, My Hero won 2 categories: Best Fight for Deku Overhaul and Best English VA for Zeno Robinson as Hawks. Woo!
right
They're
on.
putting in work like lately. Like my
Absolutely.
lord.
Yeah, Attack on Titan now too. Absolutely.
I know, I was like, Zeno Robinson is everywhere, and I love it.
The Horimiya dub, like the first couple
Oh,
episodes,
interesting.
I've just seen clips, but it's been pretty good, which is like cool because he's usually just in like shonen-y like fighting stuff. So it's like it's been neat.
I think he's in the Twilight Wings Pokemon series as well.
Oh,
Ooh, okay.
that's really cool. Because it's just like cool to me that he voice Hawks in the movie, and then like the last 2 episodes of the anime, but he left such an impact, and people love Hawks so much.
Yeah.
It smells like his voice is really good, so like 100% deserves the credit. It's just like
Yeah, it's perfect for it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Plus, his debut was like in the Two Heroes movie too, so it was like pretty
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And then a bit more news. The Ultra Analysis book, the official character guide, drops fall 2021. It's basically the second data book. And I just really like it because, like, growing up, I used to read, there was, like, the DC and Marvel Encyclopedia, which had, like, all the different comic book characters in it. And I would just, like, read through it, even though I didn't actually really read much comics. So I think it's just, like, I'm just happy that My Hero kind of has, like, an equivalent to that.
Right on.
Yay. But I think the information, like, I think it didn't actually, it has, like, Bakugo's like hero name like blacked out or something, or like unknown. So it's not going to be like super up to date, obviously,
Uh-huh.
but still pretty cool.
Has any other shonen series gotten a handbook like this, like a data book?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, One Piece has
I keep
had
thinking
quite a
about
few of
One
them.
Piece
Yeah.
Green, right?
But is that in English?
But in English, yeah, like in English.
I actually don't know if that ever got an English localization. Also, the One Piece has like those Viva cards as well that sort of give information on each of the characters that you can collect. But I don't think those have been compiled into English either.
Mm-hmm.
I constantly want to collect those off eBay, and then I just look at the prices people are selling them for, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm okay.
I keep thinking about that too, and I'm
I
like,
grabbed some when I was in Japan, so I have a few. I'm just happy I have Jinbei. I was just, yeah. But anyways, well, let's jump to the questions for Roger.
Right on.
What got you into MHA?
Sure. This is super simple. It was season 1 of the anime. So literally the very first episode of the very first season, everybody was telling me, you know, you need to start reviewing this new shonen series. It's awesome. It's different from pretty much anything else that's in Jump. You're really going to like it. And at the time, I was really only covering on my YouTube channel One Piece and Attack on Titan. And so I was also sort of looking for like that third pillar. And I mean, honestly, you can go back and watch those early live reactions and reviews I was doing for the first couple episodes. I wasn't really liking it. I was like, I don't really know if I like this protagonist. I don't know if I like where the story is going. But once it hits episode 3, episode 4, and we're actually into the stuff at school and you see the growth for Deku and you start to meet all the other kids, I'm like, oh, actually, I love this. So I really just started to binge it afterwards. And I went, you know what? I can't really wait for the second season. I'm just going to read it. And so I did a host of different read-through streams, and I kept that up all the way up through the end of the Pro Hero arc. And then I started doing them week to week, and I just recently stopped doing the week-to-week content. But yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of My Hero ever since, obviously watched all the seasons, saw both of the movies as well. So yeah, the first thing that got me into it was season 1, and I've been hooked ever since.
Nice. I really loved. I know I watched some of your streams, and I really loved the one where like you were ordering pizza and you didn't realize what everyone was so excited for you ordering pizza.
Yeah, right.
And then it was like right around. I think the pizza was right around when All Might pretends to be a pizza guy, basically.
Yeah.
I just remember that because you're like pizza boys. Like I just thought everyone was excited for you to eat.
It was so fun. Well, the one funny thing too is like I had sort of like a swoopy haircut back when the Gentle story arc was first happening in the manga, and as of that moment when I was reading those chapters, like the story arc right after Overhaul, I was pretty much caught up. I was really only binging it like 15 chapters at a time and relatively caught up to the series. And so when I saw Gentle and he had like my same swoopy haircut and he was drinking tea, which is what I would always drink during the thing, and I had the scarf on as a meme, I was like, oh my God, they put this YouTuber into My Hero Academia. I love this. This is amazing. So I loved that as well. I have a lot of great memories with that read through. I mean, screaming when Endeavor, burns alive the high-end Nomu during the Pro Hero arc, seeing Hawks for the first time, getting introduced to the hero rankings, Mutiko. I mean, I love it.
Nice.
Who is your fave character?
So this is a tie. I was going back and forth like who I like more. Recently, I'd say Mirko. I think she's amazing. She's a badass. She looks awesome. Love her design. I want to see more of her, honestly. It's like, I know right now she's probably out of commission, but I really want to see more of her as the story progresses. And I think Horikoshi wants to draw more of her as well, considering how frequently he talks about her on Twitter. So yeah, I'm just a huge fan of Mirko and her whole aesthetic. But I think I also just really love Mirio. I love what Mirio stands for. I love the first time we ever get introduced to Mirio, just how he looks like a goofy grown-up version of Lucas from Mother 3, I just thought was like the funniest thing. And, the way you see him sort of utilize this quirk that, ultimately is probably one of the worst quirks that a person can get. But, overcoming that and turning it into something amazing. The cape moment during the overhaul arc, he's great. I love Mirio.
You really like the MIRs, like
I do. Mirko and Mirio, yeah. And actually, this isn't one that has an MIR, but Hatsune Mei is another one, so it's an M, I guess. All the characters with M in their name I like, except for Mineta. I used to like Mineta, now I hate Mineta. I used to really like him.
Mineta comes and goes for me. Sometimes I like him, sometimes I don't. Right now, I'm waiting. We're gonna see how he reacts to about midnight. That's what I'm okay. Might come around.
Hopefully.
I don't know.
So here's our next question. What quirk would you have if you had a quirk?
Yeah, so this was actually a question that was posed to me on a video that I had done. I did a video collab with a couple of the YouTubers talking about my hero. And it's something that comes up relatively frequently too in like One Piece discussions where people will go, oh, if you had any superpower, any devil fruit or whatever, what would you have? And my answer is always the same. It's Shinso's. I think Shinso's quirk is just phenomenal. Anything that can sort of take over somebody's mind is just like a fascinating superpower to me. Like, I don't know if y'all watched Jessica Jones,
Yes.
but like the Purple Man's power is definitely something where I'm like, oh my God, this can be super dangerous in the wrong hands. And I think, you know, if I'd be interested to see what hero would do with the power like that. So I'm curious to see, like, as Shinso progresses in the story and we get to see more of him, you know, how he's going to be able to utilize this in day-to-day hero work.
I just wonder if his like works through like electronics or something. Like if he could go be like a YouTuber, like call somebody and do it. Because I don't think
I mean, that would be broken. If I could tell all of my audience to do something,
Spending money.
Yeah, right, exactly.
No, but I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
That's kind of like topical with like the most recent Jujutsu Kaisen episode with Inumaki talking to the phone.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. That's right. Very topical. Yes, yes.
Me with a useless here.
Yeah.
And then on to the next one. Do you have a favorite, or what is your favorite arc?
Yeah. I remember just reading Overhaul in a binge during those read-through series. I think I did it in 3 parts. And that to me was sort of like the long form story arc that I was craving all throughout like the early My Hero Academia days. Cause, you know, obviously I was enjoying those earlier story arcs, but I was craving something a little bit more substantial. Similar, like, you know, I'm a One Piece fan. I'm getting into Naruto for the first time right now. I love Attack on Titan and I love these big, long running sort of stories. And so Overhaul just hit on a number of different levels for me. And I still go back to that and think, you know, even the ending of it, right? With Night Eye officially passing away and that moment with Mirio, it just feels like it really raised the stakes in My Hero in a way that I was craving for a long time. So I totally dig the Overhaul arc. But now that we've moved on from it and we've gotten further in, I think Pro Hero might be my favorite in terms of pure hype. I think that Endeavor fight against the Nomu is still one of my favorite things in the entire series. And if you go back and watch those read-throughs, I am like screaming at the top of my lungs. My face is turning redder than Endeavor's fire. It's just like I was going off. And, you know, who doesn't love Hawks as a character?
Because when you said Pro Hero, I thought for a second you meant them interning with Endeavor, but you just mean that for the fighting high-end.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like Endeavor fighting high-end, Can't You See Kid and all that stuff.
Overhaul's a bit mixed for me because I appreciate it's long, but I got a little tired. But that's fair.
Yeah.
But on to the next one.
What direction do you want the story to go?
Yeah, so this is probably what got me in a lot of trouble on Twitter when I was talking about this, because I think the thing is I don't feel like where we are now in the story after the war arc, we can feasibly go back to the school. I think if we go back to day-to-day school life, and that's not to say I don't like that stuff. I mean, I love the gentle story arc. I thoroughly appreciate anytime you go back and actually get to see the kids in their element. In particular, like one thing I really loved in the older story arcs was when we got that tour of the dorm rooms. I thought like it added so much character to the cast of 1A, and I'd love to see something more like that. But really where we are right now with the prison break and the stuff going on with Endeavor and the fallout from the war arc, I just feel like you can't really go back to the school. So I'm a lot more interested right now in sort of like the crumbling of the hero society. And, you know, it's obviously started already, but I mean like really seeing it crumble and potentially seeing the majority of the heroes that we've grown to love over the course of the series sort of take a backseat to these kids that now sort of have to step up and create this new generation of heroes to inspire a whole nother generation. So that's really where I want us to get going. And I don't know if that's going to require a time skip. I really have no idea, and I don't really care. Like, I think I trust Horikoshi enough to take it in an interesting direction. My main thing is just stakes. Like, I just want to make sure that stakes are followed through on. I think a lot of the stuff that I really didn't like from the war arc was a lot of the big reasons why I didn't really like a lot of late Whole Cake Island in One Piece as well. And I don't want to get like too much into spoilers. But I am not ever a fan of this chapter is ending with this thing and like, oh, these characters are near death. Are they actually going to die? And then you actually get to that moment, and this is a My Hero podcast, so I could talk in more specific terms about the My Hero stuff. But like when Hado gets burned alive, when Bakugo gets stabbed, when, you know, President Mike and Aizawa are going through all that stuff. I feel like when Gran Torino gets donutted by Shigaraki, there's all of this stuff that, we're going through this war arc. And presumably when we got to the ending bit, with the memorial and you see Midnight and Crust and all the other heroes that passed away, I was really, or the Pussycats even, Wash. I mean, there were all these characters that were shown in really deadly situations and like seemingly are okay after all this and said and done. And I think that's the thing that I really want to see more of, right? I want to see how, if Gran Torino truly survived that situation, or Hado survived with, without a huge burn, like how did that happen? How did they get out of that? And what are the repercussions of it? And the main reason I say this with My Hero too, and why I'm so strict about it, is because I feel like one thing I really appreciate about Horikoshi, I love this about Horikoshi, is you see on the characters damage. Like if somebody gets burned, if somebody gets hit, if somebody gets stabbed, you viscerally see the impact of that attack on the characters throughout the other story arcs. You see this during the Stain arc. You see this during the early chapters of the War arc. You see this a lot during MVA. And it's just, it's something that I feel like is somewhat missing from the story right now. And I want to see it get back to it.
I feel like we might see it after like the current, like the Todoroki stuff is ending. Hopefully it'll go back to Deku, and then we'll also, because I feel like Gran Torino is probably still in the hospital bed. I swear to God, if Nijiri doesn't have like a burn,
if Gran Torino lives,
I don't actually mind.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm a bit more iffy. I'm ready to go back to school stuff, but I want it to have the kids be very much like realize how weird it is, and maybe like struggling and like rejecting it or whatever. I don't know.
And I think I'd be okay with that too. I mean, I think it's just something where like we can't go back to the standard anymore. We can't go back to the status quo. Right. And I worry that we potentially could, if there's not another greater repercussion. I mean, the other thing too, and this potentially goes into the next question you were going to ask me, so I might as well transition into it, is I think, with the prison break and with the villains on the rise, now would probably be the good time for that traitor reveal that we've all been waiting for.
Drum roll.
Yeah. So in terms of theories that I potentially have about My Hero Academia, I've held on to this one for a really, really long time. I've done videos on the topic. I've talked about it in live streams. I want to start this by asking you guys, is the prevailing idea within the fandom right now that Nezu is the traitor?
No.
Is there a prevailing person that people think is the traitor?
Hagagure, I think. Probably.
I was going to say that.
Just because she's invisible. And also Kira.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And Kaminari,
I did
or you can
think
say
it was
James,
Nezu at one time for a while.
I think we've definitely gotten a message from somebody or somebody on the podcast saying Nezu. I feel like that doesn't really make any sense to me.
Those three, though, that we just mentioned are like the three that people bring up.
Exactly. And the one that to me always sort of surprises me that I never really see people talking about is Vlad King. So I actually think Vlad King might be the traitor, because if you look back at those early story arcs of My Hero Academia, Class B is usually involved in some capacity. Like, what was the class that was using USJ right before that arc? Class B. Who went, during the training camp arc? Who was with them? Vlad King. Blood Powers also. You've got Toga, who's already involved in the League of Villains, and you've got some type of blood, like, manipulation type thing. I don't know. Like, I feel like Vlad King is one of those characters that I think would surprise a lot of people if he did end up being the traitor, but would also still like leave enough of an impact. I think that's my main worry with the traitor thing right now, is that they've been setting it up for so long that if it's not somebody on the level of Kaminari or, Invisible Girl or Nezu or Vlad King, that it might not necessarily hit and might leave me and a lot of other fans disappointed.
Yeah.
But Vlad King, I think it would just be fascinating to literally rip up the person who is the teacher of Class B, who is now like very much involved with Class 1A. After we had 1A versus 1B, like a lot of these students are sort of coming into their own. We saw this early on in the War arc as well. You've got characters like Tetsu really coming to shine as well. And so I feel like, what would it be like if their teacher was gone? Like, how would that affect the classroom dynamic in the school? How would that affect, the idea of these kids wanting to become heroes in the future, and like with their perspective on the world even? I mean, imagine if Aizawa ended up being a villain, what that would do to the class. Like, imagine the impact that would have on Class B. So yeah, I'm sticking with Vlad King. I think Vlad King is going to end up being the traitor.
I like it.
I'm just trying to think it out, because I know at the one of the first things the traitor did was they basically got information about whether All Might was going to be at the USJ, and like Flat King could just look at it, but it could be a cover of like you need to have how do they figure it out without them realizing that it's a traitor because they didn't realize until way later.
Right. Well, I mean, there you go.
Yeah. He's
feeding the information of them going to USJ, but seemingly like 1B just used it and then they stopped using it and left as 1A comes in. I just like it seems odd to me, and I want a lot of that stuff explained. So
yeah, the traitor stuff, I've like reached the point where I almost don't care because we got told about it, and then nothing, and I'm like, I think the other people like to think is Aoyama just because he's weird.
Oh, sure.
And his belt, but
and his belt.
Well, to be fair, I mean, there was that moment during that story arc where he leaves the cheese on the windowsill for Deku, and everybody thought with the weird face, it's like, oh, is this it? Is it gonna be?
That was so creepy.
Yeah.
But he's just a nice boy who wants to be friends.
He's just a good boy. Yeah.
Yes, but he's and I don't know, he's weird. But now we're all laughing. Let's go on to the sadness of 302. Because like there's no good segue for this.
This is my hero academia.
The wrong way to put out a fire, part 2. I just really like that title. It feels very dramatic.
Me too.
And then it jumps to the Todoroki household and Endeavor saying, from now on, we're keeping Shoto away from the other kids. And so it basically kind of skipped from when Toya like attacked Todoroki, and he's saying like, I'm too busy with work to look after him 24/7, which is why I've hired help. But you, don't take your eyes off of Toya. And Ray is kind of trying to explain, being like, he just wants you to look at him, to notice him, that's all. And then we get this like really intimidating shot of Endeavor.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think Horikoshi's definitely been dabbling, like, more and more with horror stuff, even though I guess I would say, like, all the way back even in the Shigaraki flashback. But, and he's saying, all I can show anyone is the world of heroes. And it's like, okay.
So just gotta love the little hot and cold sleep bubble.
Oh, yes, I forgot to mention
Super
the
cute,
snot
yeah.
bubble is so cute. She's a little baby.
A little bit of frost on it.
Yes. It's like you have like you could like save you save your baby's first tooth, save your baby's first snot bubble.
Put it in a freezer.
Yes. And the face that Ray gives him, as well as we get like a cute Todoroki in the background, she's like, heroes? Aren't you just running away? And then we kind of get his more like shocked face. And then 5 years later, we don't need to see the end of that conversation. And we get the kids, and they're coming to bother Toya, being like, hey, Toya, let's play. We get Fumi, 12. So she's just a year young. She's like really, I think people were even theorizing she's born in the same year as Toya. Because Toya has a January birthday, she has a December birthday.
Could be.
And then we have second son, Natsuo. I forgot. I think I always call him Natsu, but there's an O there. And he's like, oh, sure. My
Twitch streaming. Oh, he's got Gunpla in the background.
I was just gonna bring that up. Yeah.
Let's go. I was just streaming building some Gunpla like right before this.
Did Twitch exist that far back?
Or they're in the future, right?
Oh, I guess that's right. Yeah, true.
I like to think he's on one of those like Webpoint 1.0
Updating
websites. Welcome to the
he shares a room, I think, because I think there's another desk. The other desk has the thingy. The robot.
So that's Natsuo's then, or Fuyumi's.
I think so. Yeah.
Sorry, I
just
liked about
realized the second desk. They're so rich. They have like they have two computers. I guess how you because I don't know. Why do they have laptops?
They don't have the computer in like the living room set up. Just like one computer forever.
I was gonna say I have like a bunch, but they're all like collector computers. They're like super old. So.
But I don't know what's normal now. I still have a laptop. And then we get the shot that we've seen before in Todoroki's flashback of the kids playing. And we get confirmation that Toya is the smaller one. And yada yada. And baby Todoroki is watching them. He's the third son. And Endeavor is mean, saying, don't look at them, Shoto. Your siblings belong to a different world than you. And he says, just this one time, please? let me play with Toya and them. And he's like, no, it's time to train your output capacity. He even does like his beard thing when just hanging out with his family.
He's going through a
like,
beard phase.
Chill. Like, why?
That's it, yeah.
And then there's a shot of kind of them outside the family home, and we get like Toya looking back and looking kind of sinister. And then we kind of get a flashback of him talking. Oh yeah, they do sleep in the same room because we see him together with Natsuo. He's saying like, I mean, that one time was my fault. Little Shoto didn't do anything wrong, but Dad's to blame too. Won't even pay attention to us because we're failed creation. He's kind of like shaking him like, hey, did you know pigeons do this? I think there's like a meme thing of like people, I think it's Step Brothers or something, when someone's like telling them a random fact. It's like, I'm going to kill you. Sorry. Crazy, right? Is that what modern heroes are all about? Making all these kids they don't even need? And he's like, and Natsuo's just like, hey, why don't you bug sis about this stuff once in a while? And Toya is kind of just like freaking out, saying, you're telling me to buzz off too, Natsuo? Natsu, even you? I'm talking to you because you're the only one who gets it. You agree, right? The women in this house are good for nothing.
God.
What is happening?
Very, very odd.
Is he even red-pilled? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, get this shit off Reddit. You want to
Jeez, yeah.
He'd be on Reddit. Get him off
Oh
there.
God, no.
Get him
Is
off
Toya
Reddit.
black-pilled?
I do honestly think we can get into it later, but I do wonder if like he was talking to someone else, because some of the stuff he's saying, like even later on, where did he learn that? But let's continue.
Okay.
But it just strikes me as odd.
Well, yeah, it's very. He says, "Wait, you're about to run off to that mountain again, aren't you? Why don't you hang out with your classmates once in a while?" And Toya responds with, "I don't need friends. We live in different worlds." And Ray continues, "Toya," and says, "Do you even want to be a hero?" And she continues on, "As your mother, it looks to me like you're suffocating because of who your father is, and you're suffering for it." And Toya kind of does like a quick shift because you can see like if you see his pupils of his eye, it's kind of like doubled. So I guess he does kind of like a quick turnaround, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah.
that throws me for a loop. It's like an optical illusion where the eye kind of follows you.
And she continues on, "Toya, there are so many paths available, countless options for you. Try looking beyond your father. See what else is out there. If you do that, I'm sure you'll find the man who you want to become." And I thought at first it said, "I'm sure you'll find the man like for you." And I was like, wait, what? For a second, yeah. I was like, oh, that's nice. And this like panel is so good right here. But he's like, "What the hell do you know, Mom?" And her mom just kind of like, you can even see her hair kind of jolting because she was like in shock. And he says, "Where'd you get that tidbit? Some self-help book?" He says, "I know about Grandma and them being real poor, so they had to sell you off. You had no choice." And he storms off and Ray's and he says, "That's why I was born, right?" He says, "You're guilty too, Mom." And she goes on, you see her eyes, says, "Toya." And then we read on, it says, "The fire won't go out."
There's a lot of stuff here too, going back to what you guys were mentioning with like the horror aspects that I'm really loving about this flashback. You can see it just like sort of the shivers that are going down her spine. This moment with the fire on the bottom of the page, the look on Toya's face. There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
Really.
it's been pretty consistent since
there's a lot
like
of stuff
Shigaraki and stuff. I've noticed there's a lot of horror elements.
Yeah.
And maybe further
Yeah,
back that I
had to look
can't
back.
think of at the moment.
But we get
But I just also love, I think there's something going on with like the eyes as well.
Yeah.
Like I think if you look at Endeavor's eyes later, but I'm just noticing things now.
it's
but
the
sorry.
eyes. But we get Winter, Toya, age 13. As we see that he has some targets, like he's in the mountain area. It looks like some targets that he burned, and I noticed there's some buckets of water there, so I guess he probably uses it to try to like, he can't control his own flame, so. Yep.
And he's by a river, which is helpful. I just noticed the river.
So we're assuming he's training, and we continue on, and we get some of the narration. It says, "Toya was always small because he came out of the oven a little too early, but at long last, he had a growth spurt." And Toya says, "Right, it's just another bodily process. My fire powers linked to my feelings, so if I get riled up, I'm pretty awesome if I do say so myself. Man, Dad's sure in for a surprise. And along with these physical changes, his fire. But dang, when I get worked up, I don't know why, but I start crying." And then we get it changed from red to blue.
That's going to look so cool in the anime.
Oh.
Do-do-do.
This whole scene, like in the forest with the lighting and then the fire changing colors, it's going to be great with the soundtrack in the background.
Oh, yeah. And we cut back to the Todoroki house. And Toya says, "Listen, Dad, next time you get a day off, you gotta come up to Sekoto Peak with me," as we see a surprised Endeavor at that response.
So Endeavor, as any bad father would react to his son being like, "Yo, Dad, come up to the mountains with me. It'll be great." He yanks up his shirt. Says, "What you been doing in the mountains?" He goes, "New burns. Where he can keep them hidden. He's been training that way on purpose." He says, "Damn it, again?" And Toya's like, "No, wait. What I can do now is really cool. You gotta come see." And he starts kind of like scratching behind his head and like he's getting real riled up.
Is he like shifting his feet? Sorry, I was just like noticing like
Yeah,
shuffling his
going back and forth. Yeah,
a little bit. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
Oh, he's really cool. Little happy day.
Yeah, he just
fire just turned
blue.
Aw.
Even
But he
break
says,
dancing in the woods again.
It's Footloose, actually, you guys.
There you go, it's Footloose, yeah.
We don't do
Yeah.
Dancing in my house? Toya says, "I might be as awesome as Shoto sooner or later. Maybe I'll even be better than All Might someday. Then you've got to give me some respect, Dad. You'll be glad you created me. I just know it." As he starts kind of like tearing at his hair almost. And Endeavor's got the real like Junji Ito like shadowing on his face. Just like real scared. And we go over to a scene of him coming into the bedroom with Ray and Todoroki in there. He says, "Why didn't you stop him? Huh, Ray? Damn it, that's all I asked you to do." As Ray's kind of like on the ground and Todoroki's little 5-year-old kind of like standing in between them. Says, "Don't bully mommy. Stop it. Don't be mean to her." As like these little wah sound effects are in between both these things. So he's like crying in between all of it. It's so sad.
This just breaks my heart because like Ray's on the ground.
Yeah.
So like he definitely did something. I don't know.
It's sad. It says, "Get out, Shoto. It's none of your business," as we see the other two siblings in another room, hopefully, or maybe in this room, just kind of cowering in the corner together. Real sad. And it says, "What the hell do you know, Mom?" As we get kind of like the flashback to that scene. And Ray, kind of having like an internal monologue, says, "Yes, my options were limited, but I made my choice, and I walked that path of my own accord. I had hoped, if nothing else, that I would keep smiling. Yet," she says, "I can't stop him." Now we get a kind of them in the present talking back and forth to each other during this page. And Ray says, "And you didn't go after him." As we get Toya in the mountains, like saying, "Quit crying already, stupid tears." And Endeavor says, "I thought I'd only be throwing fuel on his fire. No, that's not it." This Toya gives out a little "damn it." Endeavor says, "The truth is, I had no idea what to say to him." And Toya starts crying, and we start seeing the blue flames coming around his eyes.
Yeah.
And Ray says, "Neither did I." And, whoo boy, we get a double-page spread of Toya just lighting on fire. And in the present, Davi's kind of sitting there talking to himself. He goes, "Man, that was hot." It's just, Davi, shut up. We're in the middle of something, man.
I know. It is interesting. There's like there's a fireplace that's not
just
on
kind of flick over there and light it on. Hold on. Gotta set some ambiance. As little Toya's like screaming, like, "Gah! The flames! Can't stop them!" So we get a little flashback of like him when he was much younger with his arm on fire, like smiling.
Yeah.
And Davi says, "Well, that's just desserts. All he ever taught me was how to turn up the heat." As we get the whole forest starts to engulf in flames, civilians running away. It says, "If only I'd given it all that day."
Yeah, that entire sequence is just brutal when you look at
I
it too.
know.
Like that first shot of him on page 12 where, you see him like burning up for the first time and then juxtaposing it with present day Davi. It's really, really sad.
It's interesting. He kind of looks a little bit like Death.
He does.
Shot.
Yeah. I'm sure that was intentional. Yeah.
I think so, yeah, because it's kind of like they both wanted to be heroes.
So
really,
I will say,
badly.
like, the civilian in the middle almost looks like Giganto Macho for me.
Isn't
Well,
that
I thought
Endeavor?
it was Endeavor and his wife and stuff, but they don't have like the right hairstyles.
Yeah, I don't think that is Endeavor.
He
I
turned
think
off
that's
the
like a
beard.
civilian of the town.
Oh.
It's a
Yeah.
stunt double. Your celebrity
Maybe
double.
it is a stunt double. Yeah, there you
So I
go.
thought it was Endeavor, and then a lady almost has like a beak.
I said it looks
or
like, yeah,
something.
like Medley
Is that
from
it?
Wind Waker. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I was like kept doing double takes. I'm like, what's wrong with her face? I don't know. I definitely thought that was Endeavor like running up. So I think he might be even wearing his hero suit, but he doesn't have his fire beard. So who knows?
But yeah, so we jump back to present then with Endeavor saying, having killed Toya, I felt there was no turning back. So I poured all my energy into Shoto at the expense of everything else. And this entire panel, by the way, like this whole sequence with it going back between everybody else and like saying what they could have done, it's just like it breaks my heart to see the whole family going through this.
Yeah.
Then with Ray talking, saying, once Toya was gone, you grew worse and worse until I couldn't stand the sight of you. It got so bad I even started seeing hints of you in the children's faces. And once again, you get that like Junji Ito looking panel of Ray looking down at the kids. Just brutal. Fuyumi then follows up and says, I knew our family was broken, but I was too scared to interfere. All I could do was try to fix things just to keep up appearances. And then jumps back to Natsuo saying, it was you who started all of this. You're the root cause. But maybe if I just slugged you in the face and had a few serious talks with him, Dabi would have never come about. And I would have been enjoying some good soba with Shoto all these years. And then you're not the only one who's responsible as you see the flower being held up in the hospital room. Now we all have to take responsibility for what comes next. Your heart may be broken, Ray continues, but we're here to get you back on your feet. You have no choice but to fight Dabi. And Endeavor, looking like relatively shocked by this, saying, are you really the woman that I married? As you get that silent shot of Ray. The silence speaks volumes. In that one panel, just like,
I really like definite side eye.
Yeah, the side eye is real. He continues on, one of our children, one who suffered much more than us. Well, despite having every right to resent me, he started calling me mom again. He's been making friends at UA. And now he's the one saving us. And Ray looks over and sees Shoto is our family's hero with the shot of Todoroki and Deku behind it. Like, oh my God, dude. So good. I'm getting chills, man. I love this. This.
Yes. I do wonder, like, Deku, his, like, it's your quirk, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's like, kind
that's
of
definitely what
the whole family a little bit.
Oh, it's so good. And you get the little bit of a shake saying, I talked with Mom before we came to see you. I thought this couldn't be your battle to fight, and I thought the only one who could do it, but I was wrong. Once you're done grieving, and Shoto walks up to his father, stand back up, because we all have to go and stop Toya. And you see, the sound effect Shoto in the background come out of the hospital door as Hawks and Genus listen in. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. And sorry, Hawks is holding up his phone. I was like, I swear to God, if you're recording this conversation, I'm going to be mad at you, Hawks.
Maybe for this redemption.
But I don't know. That's why I think he might be, because he might be doing it to be like, oh, the family says it's okay, so public.
I don't know. That seems kind of messed up. This is a very personal family moment for him to be recording, so.
That's why I'm like, what are you doing? Also, Best Genus, it looks like his neck is too big. He looks like
Best Genus always looks like that.
But I think Best Genus is just weird as well. I think he's just tall and he like has this thing all the way up, so you can't tell where his neck.
That's right. I always just imagine Kaku from One Piece underneath the denim jacket. So.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. So have we seen below the denim jacket?
I don't know.
I feel like we have.
I'm sure at some point.
But I was going to say, when I was reading this, I was reading on my phone. So when it says next chapter, I'm like, oh, it's over. And I flip just in case. I'm like, oh wait. So I'm like, I put the next chapter at the end of the chapter.
Yeah, because that panel really was like a chapter ending panel.
Yeah, definitely.
They could have finished it there, honestly.
But I guess it's supposed to kind of be. It's obviously like 2 pages like together, so like it makes sense.
One Piece has done that before too.
Oh yeah.
Like
a lot of Jump series have done that.
And like I've only realized after
it.
I'm like, sometimes it's like a whole other 2 pages that is after the.
It's like the after credits.
But at least no break next week, which is great. Yeah.
Oh yes, I guess I'm like, thank God, because I would have been like, I don't know. But let's jump into our feelings on the chapter, and we go in order of who read. So I'll start us out. At first, I really didn't like it. but it grew on me. There's some stuff I still don't really get, but I do want to clarify that Caleb tweeted out that apparently there was an error in the Japanese version, that the once Toya was gone bit, when it says, like, then I started to see his face everywhere, that is apparently a mistake and will be removed in the future. So basically the timeline is Rei gets sent to the institution and then Toya dies, which, like, borderline doesn't make sense to me. But Fuyumi's line at the dinner implies that Rei was already gone when Toya died. She say Natsu and Toya were so close, they were always playing together. It was shortly after Mom went away. So that kind of explaining when it being Noya's death. And you can follow Caleb at CD Cubed. He is locked right now because people on the internet are dicks. But overall, I don't know. It's just, I think we're basically seeing kind of the fall of Endeavor, and now then we're jumping back to present day. And I don't know, I think a lot of people are really mad because they either think that it's kind of redeeming Endeavor, and I'm like, not really. We see, this doesn't make me like Endeavor more. Like, because, like, oh no, he wasn't that much of a dick before, and he, like, slowly became a dick. Still a dick. Like, it wasn't like the tragedies of Endeavor are his fault. Yeah. It's not like there's an evil villain who's like, oh no, the evil villain took my son away. Even though I do think somebody was talking to Toya. Because the bit about, like, modern heroes are all about, and also just knowing that his mom's parents were poor, apparently, and then, like, kind of him lashing out, like, her saying something which honestly makes sense, but him kind of just, like, rejecting it because it's just, like, because it's trite or kind of, like, too easy. It really does feel like he is getting manipulated, and I think that might be the reveal of, like, how he survived the burning, but that might be a little bit too easy, and maybe also kind of freeing Endeavor a little bit more, where you can go, oh no, it was because of insert this person manipulating this guy. I don't know. I really, really, really hate the bit where it's like, we all respond. You're not the only one who's responsible. Because Natsuo was 8. Is he supposed to punch his father in the face? Like, no.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, like, I can't really, I'm not speaking from any point of expertise, but that just really pissed me off. But, I don't know, I think I really like the idea of them all doing it, because I do wonder if they won't fight Dabi in the, like, traditional sense, I guess would be my hope. And I guess, I don't know, I still don't really like Endeavor that much. Like, this, I don't, maybe some people are reading this and like, oh, now I like Endeavor more, or, like, I'm mad because it makes it seem like people will like Endeavor. I'm like, no, I still don't like him that much. He's still a dick. He's trying, but still a dick. And I'll probably think of other things. Oh, and the other thing I would say is I was really, really confused, because when Dabi did his reveal of who he was like, oh, I'd crawled to Natsu crying my eyes out and you never knew. And I thought it was him saying that he did that after training, but it didn't make sense because the training stopped before Natsu was even born. Mm-hmm. But it was actually as we see him crying because he wasn't getting trained and being like, oh, what am I if I'm not a hero, and all that jazz. But sorry, I've talked a lot, and I don't know, but let's jump, and I'll probably think of other things to say, to be honest. But let's jump to James.
All right, here's my hot takes. No, anyways.
Hey, hot takes get on fire? That's great. Yeah, it's good, real good.
Yeah. But it was hard to me to form an opinion last week just because it really was like part one of us, like this flashback. So I didn't feel like I could get the full picture of everything other than, oh, you know, Endeavor's sort of abusive or whatever. But after seeing this chapter, like, I didn't really like Endeavor to begin with, so I still don't like him. Sorry, everyone. So I might be a little bit biased in this. But I always, like, when Horikoshi does, like, the flashbacks of, like, really bad, like, fathers and, like, abuse in relationships, like, I think he covers it, like, pretty well, at least in my opinion. I don't want to get, like, canceled right now by people telling me I'm wrong or something, but I don't know. It seems, like, very realistic, like, you know, even though this is, like, fiction, it just feels realistic to me.
Toy, like, starting to pull at his hair. It made me think at first of Shigaraki, like, scratching all the time. Mm-hmm. But then that's what I was thinking. Like, no, he's pulling his hair, so it's kind of like stress pulling. And it makes me think of, like, Hawk's interaction with his father as well, and his father being like, face me. But this is kind of, like, the opposite.
Yeah.
It's just, like, yeah.
And I feel it's represented well, at least in this story.
I just hate the conclusion they come to.
Yes, yeah, I'll talk about that in a second too as
Sorry,
well.
keep going. Sorry.
I mean, other than that, a lot of the a lot of the panels are really good in this. Like, like the horror aspect of it that he's done, like in some of the ink lines and all that. Let's see. I will just touch on the flames thing a bit because I've been seeing on Twitter people were being really dumb and don't know how fire works.
Hmm.
But yes, a blue flame is hotter, but a reason a blue flame is because it is sort of a pure like mix, like an air fuel mixture that is called complete combustion, which means there's less waste byproduct. So a red flame has more waste byproduct. So the waste byproduct would be all the carbon that's in the wood and all that stuff that's happening. So that's why the fire was red in the mountains and not blue. It would never be blue
Because it couldn't
because
keep.
it's
It couldn't keep the
impurities.
heat.
Yeah,
Just from the wood. It
yeah.
wasn't
That's why
hot
there's
enough
really
to
not
keep it.
like blue fire unless there's like a different chemical aspect to it.
Mm.
But necessarily it wouldn't be hotter just because like it's not as pure and there's not that much waste byproduct. I'd go on for a little bit more detail, but I'll just keep it at that.
I just want to put I have some more 2 cents about the fire. The reveal is like he has to be. It's linked to his feelings. He has to be really riled up to do the blue flames.
Yes.
So like he's the Hulk. He's always
I'm hulking
angry.
out.
He's always sad, or he's always sad. Like when he was saying,
Didn't we
when
just
he's
have
crying.
a stress Hulk character a couple story arcs ago? I mean, wasn't that like a whole? I mean,
Yes, we did get
with Redestro.
Redestro.
Yeah.
We called him Dave for a while, so I was like, wait, maybe not Dave. Redestro. But yeah, it is. Yeah, I definitely done that before. But I don't know. And the fact that he's like crying as well makes me think of Deku a little bit, kind of like the stress cry or like cries of happiness.
Yeah.
I don't know. But sorry, I keep interrupting.
Okay. Well, besides that explanation, I mean, there's just a lot of good like panel shots, like where Endeavor's like in flames and like kind of having his like hands over Shoto, and then where Rei was kind of seeing like Endeavor and her children, and there's like that one shot where it's like half of Shoto's face, and I thought it was like a weird like clip thing, but it really isn't because you can see part of his neckline too, where Rei is. So it's like really interesting that she like mentally blocked out the white part, which is her side, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting.
It's interesting that Fuyumi isn't there.
Yeah, I thought about that for a second too. But and then the whole part with the now we have to all take responsibility and trying like to sound like it's shifting the blame. I'm like, no, this is really all Endeavor. Like I keep thinking about that Twitter meme with the reaping and sowing thing. It's like me reaping, me sowing. Oh no, that's what it feels like. Like now Endeavor is sowing what he reaped. And obviously that shot with Deku and Shoto from the UA festival was really good, or the sports festival. My bad, but it was a really good shot. That's what really got me like hooked into My Hero was that arc.
Yeah, same here. I mean, that was like I brought that up earlier on during the question segment, but like season 1 was the thing that got me into it, and then when I started that read through series and I really got hooked. I mean, that was the first arc that I was reading, like, and that was the sports festival, and it was just the kind of thing where I was hankering to see all of that stuff get animated. So it is cool to always see a flashback to some of those early story arcs that really made us fall in love with the series in the first place.
But I guess it's kind of funny that that's probably what Todoroki's thinking. He's like, oh, Todoroki is our family's hero. And he's probably thinking of like, well, I have a hero. This is the person who got me here. But I guess
it's
like
saying,
he's saying like Shoto's our family's hero, and then Todoroki immediately goes like, it can't just be me.
Right.
Like I can't just be like, I'm gonna fix everything. And that's what I do appreciate, I guess. And we're talking about eyes. There is one shot of Endeavor's eyes. It looks like what's it called? Sorry, the fleeing samurai or something. The guy who's behind Assassination Classroom, he sometimes draws really scary faces. And on page 14, Endeavor looks like he's from the fleeing samurai.
Oh, okay.
His eyes look scary as shit. Or was weird. Okay, but Derek, what are your thoughts on the chapter?
To be honest, a lot of the little nitty-gritty stuff, I feel like everyone's kind of touched on, so I'm gonna just kind of hear to a lot of that. Except for 2 things. One, just being that, like, God, that double page spread was so good. It was good. Like, that just reminded me of, like, was it All It Takes Is One Bad Day? with Twice. Oh,
Ooh.
Oh,
which is like my
yeah.
favorite like little cluster chapters in like the whole series. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Just like Toya lighting up, and you can just still see like the silhouette of his body, like just beautiful.
Oh shit! I
Yeah.
didn't even notice that. I just saw the trees.
So good. But
Oh.
other than that, just like a lot of stuff we've been talking about with like everyone coming in being like, all right, it's time for us to fix this together. It's like, well, that at the end of the day, like it is as them being like good people. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it, but like Endeavor doesn't necessarily deserve it. But at the end of the day, if that's the goodness that they still have in their heart, like, who are we to be like, don't talk to him? I mean, yeah, we can be like, hey, don't talk to him. But sometimes that's just what families can do. They're just going to be like, all right, you know what? We're going to all work together. It sucks.
Yeah, and I did forget to mention earlier, but like all the Endeavor stuff, like we've gotten throughout the whole series, we do see that he has been trying. It's not like he's running away in a sense.
Which is also tough since it's like it's a manga, and we see like collectively like 45 minutes of these people all together, and then the rest is like, all right, we're gonna flash back to like 4 years later, 6 years from now. It's like, well, there's a lot going on in between there, so it's biased, just kind of what we are actually being shown.
Yeah. And also that like Shoto was basically a lot of stuff he was talking about was before he was born, and I think even because it seemed like he also heard the thing that Toya heard, that she was essentially like sold, and that's like and the women thing is really weird because I wonder if he's because Endeavor kind of just basically Endeavor treated Ray as the baby man,
Right.
essentially. So I think that's where he's getting it from. And then kind of he did try to talk to Fuyumi about it, and she kind of shut him down as well. And she's also like the same age as him, or like a little bit younger, so it's not like Fuyumi's gonna be like, oh, I'm going to magically solve this problem. I don't know. I think maybe some people are I don't know. It's just there's so many little things that I could like talk about. I keep doing it, but I don't know. I feel like there's definitely more to it. But did you have anything else you wanted to say, Derek?
No, that's about it.
Nice. Roger,
yes.
let's
All
hear
right.
your thoughts.
Let's hear my hot takes as well. All right. So
All right.
actually, I think I probably enjoyed the chapter more than anybody else on the podcast this week, which is wild. I mean, this is the thing. I think I love these emotional drama chapters. I've always been a fan of My Hero Academia when it comes down like to the core characters. I think the big thing that sort of pushes me away from a lot of the stuff that's happening recently is the fact that like you have this enormous cast, and when you're focusing on everybody, nobody really gets a true core focus. And so just having these past two chapters focus on the Todoroki family and their own drama. One thing I want to touch on first is the whole idea that was brought up of like the shifting of the blame. And I totally understand that read of it like completely, but that's definitely not how I took it at all. I think to me, we've seen all the stuff that Endeavor has done. I don't think we're supposed to read this and be like, wow, Endeavor isn't really as bad as I thought he was. Like, he's a good guy now. He's really trying. I think what it more is showing the family's acceptance of him again, right? I think that's what's been the important thing. It's not like their full acceptance, but it's the kind of thing where it's like not necessarily that they're shifting the blame, saying this is something we all need to take on. It's literally them as a unit, right? As a familiar unit that you brought up earlier too. It's like we've seen maybe 45 minutes of them total, collectively all together over the course of little sporadic flashbacks. We haven't actually seen all of them in a situation like this. So I took it more as, look, you've already met with Dabi. Shoto was there during the war arc. All this stuff has happened. You guys have dealt with him already. Clearly, that's not going to work. So we need to come together to try to figure out this solution. And I think it culminates in that moment near the ending with, Shoto going to his father and saying, we all have to go stop Toya. But I think it's much more than that, right? I think it's like the family sort of coming to terms with everything that brought Toya to that moment. And the other thing, too, is, going back to the whole sympathy thing is I don't think it's meant to be like, let's get a greater look at Endeavor and like his own motivations. Cause like I said, we've already seen a lot of that. I sort of took this as like understanding where Dabi's came from. And to me, and I don't know if you guys feel this way at all, and I'm happy to discuss it, but it feels to me like this is the beginning of a potential redemption for Dabi. Like seeing everything that he went through and then his father and his brother going to him, potentially leading to a clash, but somehow, some way, maybe turning, him over on a good leaf and making him potentially come to their side. having them deeply apologize for everything that they've been through and not having it end in just straight up death, which I think a lot of people are expecting.
Yeah.
I think the big thing people are expecting are like, oh, there's going to be a huge fight on the Todoroki estate and everything burns down. And, it might be that, who knows? It could be that. But I do think there's potential there for some type of resolution with Dabi as a character and, potentially having him become not necessarily good, but almost like an anti-hero. Yeah.
Ooh, I guess I just am forever in love with Deku's looking at Shigaraki and being like, he needs saving. And I want that moment because I think this flashback kind of really gives that for Toya, because in the previous chapter it ended with him attacking a baby and you're like, oh my god. But then we have him being like what happened before, it wasn't Lil do anything wrong, and kind of he's just is a sweet little kid who is he was raised up to 5 being like, you need to surpass All Might. But then actually, no, you can't.
Right.
Let's keep making babies until we can get the right one. And then, also, just the fact that, Endeavor should have just, because what I honestly thought was going to happen was that Endeavor was going to, semi-train him. And then, maybe completely stop after Todoroki was born. After the freak out, semi-train him. And then something goes wrong from there. Because, I don't know, your mom has ice powers. Just have him train with his mom. And, teach him more about his emotions. I just get so bad at Endeavor.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes back to what the complaint was earlier too, right? With the whole thing of being like, oh, the women in this family are good for nothing. And yeah, I think a lot of that probably stems from Endeavor, but I think the other part of it too is it's clear based on this panel that this is not the first time Toya's been ranting about this, right? I feel like he probably did go to Fuyumi, right? If they're the closest in age, he probably went to her first and talked about this constantly. And she got to the point where, again, you're a kid. What can you do? You can't do anything. So it's go talk to our brother. Maybe he'll be able to solve something. Yeah. And that's what eventually gets him to that. Another thing, God, I really appreciated in this chapter was just all the foreshadowing. There's a panel, I think it's page 3 or page 4. I can go back real quick and look. But where you see Toya's face as a kid and the bottom half is shaded out, sort of foreshadowing where he's going to eventually get the burns. I thought that was a nice touch. And I guess my major complaint with the chapter, if I had one, would have just been the timing of everything, especially knowing that thing that Caleb mentioned, where it doesn't really make sense how she would have gone to the institution and then Toya, quote unquote, died if his death was, the cremation in the forest, especially because of the panel that's on page 10. Because I'm wondering if, you see Toya leave and he says, you're guilty too, Mom, and he walks out of the house. And then the next thing you see is him in the forest. That's obviously not the next day. It's not, or that even that evening. So I think there's some stuff that happens while he's training in the forest that's over the course of days and days and days. We get that moment of why didn't you stop him training? Damn it, that's all I asked for you to do. And then you actually get to the scene where I'm assuming that Toya's been doing this for weeks, right? Training in the forest and really doing all of this. And so it could be this moment where he's screaming, why didn't you stop him? Ray, why didn't you stop him? Could be the breaking point that pushes her to go to the institution in the first place. That leads to the whole burn with Todoroki and everything like that. With Shoto, I mean. So I feel like this could have happened right then. I mean, that timeline could sort of, we've already seen, could be squished between the thing that's on page 10 and the page 11 spread as well.
Oh, yeah, because Ray's look there, it definitely, I think it fits. Kind of she snaps after that, and then Toya snaps as well because now his mom's gone. Oh. Yeah,
but I mean, overall, I just like I said, I appreciate getting more of the family stuff. But I totally understand, like, if somebody doesn't want to sympathize with Endeavor, because believe me, that's been me a lot recently with the villains. It's like, it's very hard for me to sympathize with Shigaraki even after everything. I think that's like the first moment that sort of got me in trouble with the fandom was the flashback with Shigaraki did not land for me at all, like at all. And it was the big thing that sort of really pushed me in the direction where I'm like, maybe this really isn't for me anymore. And I don't know. I mean, like, I resonate, I think, more with the Todoroki family, having seen a lot of what happened with Endeavor and, you know, Shoto going up as well. Like, we've spent a lot of time with the family in that situation. And I'm interested to see where it's going to go and where he's going to take Dabi after all this.
Ooh. Are we ready to jump into the questions we got from people?
Oh, sure.
This is my hero academia.
The first one is more unrelated to what's currently happening, so it's a more lighthearted one. It's an email from Black Northwind saying, "Hello, MHA Pod. I've heard you have talked about what might happen to Class 1A kids, but what about kids from Class B? We know that Pony is a student from abroad. Will she be forced to return to her respected home?" And because we talked a bit about, like, basically if we think any kids will drop out of UA, even though they probably won't. It's fun to think about, and it's a fun thought exercise. And I think that raises a very good point, because Pony is like an international student. Japan is fucked right now.
Yeah.
Like, fictionally. So I could very much see, I agree that her parents could pull her. But I don't know if anyone else, I think I've had, like, Roger, did you have any
Not
thoughts
at all.
on that?
No, I feel like the
No?
thing is, the Class B, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I feel like Class B has not also resonated with me in the same way. I feel like we still haven't even spent as much time as I would like with Class 1A. So now we're introducing so many more of these Class B characters that it's like, I find it very difficult to care.
Yeah. Because, like, I made a tier thing, and I looked, and I'm like, I could not pick for how most of these characters are, like, non-personalities, besides, like,
Tetsu I think stands out. I think the manga kid stands out as well.
Yeah.
With the manga powers. Pony, for sure. Jesus Girl with the vines on her head. I forgot what her name is. And Kendo. And Monoma, of course. Monoma, too.
Oh, I end up listing a lot, because I'm in love with Jozu Hanunuke. I think he's amazing. And then there's also Weldy, whose name, Yotetsu. I had to look at that. I'm literally... Yes. I was like, I didn't have it in front of me because I never remember his name. He's just named Weldy.
He's like the only one I really care about.
Yes. But I guess I really have my hopes pinned on, like, maybe even the next chapter going into the students and kind of having the impact on the students of what's currently going on. But who knows? Derek or James, do you have any thoughts on Class
Pony's visa's about to... The government's like, you gotta go back to America. You get out of here. Your visa's up, kid. Sorry. Go to I don't know, a hero at Harvard. I don't know. You can go there. That's hero at America.
Harvard.
Hero, yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just gonna pick who I think is going to Shota. I'm gonna say Shota's gonna leave. He seems.
Oh, that's a good choice. That's definitely a good choice.
He's Two Punch Kid, basically.
I can't think of any of the 1B kids really, other than, like, Pony was really, like, the only one I could think of just because they were a transfer student.
I would say Tetsu is either going to do the exact same thing as
Or the
Kirishima
opposite.
as a joke, like, kind of, or the opposite, so that way it's very stark. So I feel like it's either going to be a gag, or it's going to be finally the thing that breaks the gag, and it's kind of like, oh no.
Yeah.
But other than that, and also what Kendo does and what Momo does might also contrast.
I'd like that as well.
Oh, true.
I love Kendo. She's like far and away my favorite in 1B. So yeah.
Oh, nice. And Monoma.
Yeah, same. Thank you. Okay, I'm not alone. Clearly, I'm not. All right, that makes me feel good.
He's just annoying, so I feel like he's gonna do something, but I'm just like, he's just gonna be.
Yeah, I feel like Monoma. It's funny right now. I'm going through Naruto for the very first time on my Twitch channel, and so I just got through the Chunin exam story arc, and I joked at the ending. I'm like, man, does Neji ever stop being a dick? And that's kind of how I feel about Monoma. I think Monoma sort of needs a little bit of a redemption moment. So.
Nice. I think, like, I'm a little bit ahead of you in Naruto, because I think you and Grant all started interacting, rereading and watching it, and I was like, okay, screw it.
Do it.
I need to read it as well. I'm like a bit ahead. I don't know, but let's jump to questions for Roger. We got one from Jessica at Afro Allura. Voltron reference, I think. Do you have a scene or story arc you're most excited to see animated?
Oh man, I mean, to be honest, we just talked about it during this. I can't wait to see this Dabi backstory stuff animated. I think that's going to be really cool. And then, of course, like Mirko's attack on the laboratory, I think is going to be fire. I think that entire sequence of episodes, I think, is going to be something that's really going to get a lot of people who maybe aren't even like hardcore fans of My Hero into it. Because I haven't talked with many people who are like just strictly My Hero or predominantly My Hero fans above other stuff about the war arc in great detail. But to me, especially going into it, it felt sort of like My Hero Academia's Marineford, right? Where it's like everything sort of changes after this. The stakes have really been raised. And, you know, Marineford did a lot in bringing in new viewers and new readers into One Piece. So I'm wondering if the War Arc's going to be able to do the same.
And kind of like if we will actually get that big change. Because it felt so like, I think we kept saying it feels endgamey, that it feels like the end. And now we'll see. And if it does go back to normal, it'll kind of be like, what was the point? Right. But I hope it kind of plays with that a little bit. But we'll see. And then Jessica also asked, what is an aspect of the series you would like to see explored more?
Oh, literally Class 1A. I think there's still like so many characters like Sugar Boy and Coda and even really Mineta. Like we talked about him earlier. I think there's a lot of characters that still have a lot of room for growth. And so I almost feel like we moved on to the stuff with 1B a little too quickly. Because now I feel like Tetsu and Kendo even, like a lot of the characters from B have almost had more of a chance to shine than many of the characters from 1A. Shoji even. And so I want more of that. I think I want like a tightening of the core cast. I want to see a lot more of that. And I want to see an arc with a threatening villain that is not just Shigaraki or All for One taking over Shigaraki. I think that's something I really appreciated about like MVA still, was getting to see these other villainous type of characters. And I think that's something when looking back at the early chapters of My Hero, because, you know, a lot of people will say, the pre-time skip era of One Piece feels very different from the post-time skip era. And so it's fun to go, okay, break that down. Why do you feel that is? And so I did that recently after I sort of had like my falling out at the end of the war arc with some of the stuff that was going on in My Hero. And I said, okay, let me go back and see what I really loved about these early My Hero arcs. And sort of like the through line with all of them were the villains. Overhaul, getting the stuff with the Yakuza, getting Stain in the Stain arc, having Gentle even. I feel like having these sort of standalone villains that aren't just the big bad is something that I really want to see a lot more of. And again, that maybe some people would argue that that's lowering the stakes a little bit, but I don't necessarily think so, because I think there's a lot of villains who could potentially take this opportunity, you know, with the prison break and the crumbling of the society, to really rise up and become like astronomical threats.
And that's like why I kind of touching basically saying like kind of like narrowing the gaze on who is like the main cast. I really do want at least some people to drop out, so then we can kind of do that. But as well as like I don't want to lose them forever, because I feel like it would be really sad if like Sato dropped out and we never saw him again, because it'd be of that. But if like we just kind of get to narrow it or kind of like have a little bit more focus, like I'm really glad we're getting the Todoroki stuff. But now I want to look at someone who's not the big three, or like the Three Musketeers, or whatever that shit is. There's 4 Musketeers in the books. Screw you.
Dude, don't tell John Cena that. He's going to take that post off his Twitter.
Oh no. Oh, that was so funny. Especially because we like just did an image of
with the hand. Yeah, I was talking to Reagan about that actually, and she was like, that definitely is not John Cena's signature move. Like, it's not the only thing. Deku is not referencing John Cena. I'm like, well, that is absolutely why John Cena put it on his page. And she's like, well, that's stupid then.
Did y'all talk last episode about how he put up another My Hero picture on his Instagram feed?
No.
No, I think he did.
It was like Stone Cold Shoto Todoroki.
Yeah,
oh my god.
Because I think he realized people were like freaking out, and he's like, you know what, let's play around.
Yeah, and then there was that one meme where he was reading MHA volume. But it like photoshopped in.
Or people are like, oh, they're gonna put him in like the live action or like the next movie. Maybe they'll have him voice somebody in the movie.
I still said it's gonna be like that Scooby Doo movie where he just plays himself, and then like you just know he's come in whenever the John Cena theme.
Does John Cena exist in the My Hero Academia universe? If they go to America, they meet John Cena. There you go.
Yes, or John Cena's the villain. He's
Can't see him.
There you go.
But I did want to open up to Derek or James. Did you have any scenes you were most excited to see animated?
Simple. My Villain Academia. MVA is going to be so good.
Yeah,
those fights against the like all them Redestro and God, what's Ice Boy's name? I can't remember.
Getten.
Yeah, Getten and Dobby. That's gonna be so good. Yeah. MVA is gonna be awesome.
I'm excited for Toga's fight with because that was like
for sure.
And I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's pretty much. Let's jump to the next question from Poseidon at son of _ Poseidon1. Has Roger had a chance to reread the war arc yet? If so, has his stance or thoughts changed ever so slightly?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yeah, let's hear it. That's why people are listening.
All right. I did recently reread it again, and I like it less.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it less. Especially upon a binge, because then it clarifies the stakes that I really felt weren't followed through on. You get reminded of the fact that, like, oh yeah, you basically see the Pussycats get snapped, Thanos snapped. You see Orca lying on the ground. Obviously, you of course have the stuff with Midnight. You see Hato getting burned alive. You see Bakugo getting stabbed. You see Gran Torino getting donutted. You see all of these characters really getting attacked. And I was waiting for that moment at the end, right? Especially because Mirio comes back with his quirk, which, like, I think I expected Mirio to come back at some point, obviously. I think most people in the community did. But because the stakes were so high, and because it ultimately really didn't change much of the resolution of that story arc, I'm kind of like, really, why was this the moment that you chose to brought him back? And then compounding that with the stuff with Best Jeanist coming back as well, and Best Jeanist not actually being dead, which I had assumed, and I think most of you guys assumed that as well, right? That Best Jeanist wasn't actually dead. Yeah. It was like one thing after another, and it just felt like all these stakes that had been built up for so long. And I feel like Horikoshi, he set up a world with My Hero Academia that's different from something like One Piece, right? Like, I've come to expect over years and years and years that there's not a lot of death in One Piece, right? And then when there is, it's someone who's really impactful. And the way that the stakes had been raised in My Hero Academia prior to this story arc, he's always been able to follow through on it. I feel like Horikoshi's done a really good job of, you know, taking away the quirk of Mirio during Overhaul, having Night Eye die, really changing things up. And now, you know, ending with the prison break and bringing more of these characters in, it just sort of feels like the cast as a whole is getting a little too big. And it goes back to what I said at the end of this chapter. Like, I want a tighter focus, and I want to see a lot of these stakes actually followed through on. And so, you know, I know another question that's coming up is, you know, if Gran Torino dies like Night Eye, would that change my impression of the stakes at all? And no, like, it definitely wouldn't, because when you get I mean, I expect him to die. I think we are most likely all in agreement. I don't want to speak with everybody, but I assume all of us, not that we want to see Gran Torino die, but that we expect, and he probably should at this point within the story.
He makes the most sense to, like, die.
I mean, he's an old man. He's been through a lot. I think it'd be nice to sort of have, like, one last resolution moment with him and All Might. Like, All Might coming to the hospital, seeing him, and then sort of having, like, final words with him on the deathbed, I think would be good. But no, like, I don't think so. I look back at that spread with Midnight and Crust and Majestic, and then a bunch of these no-name villains that I feel like could have been heroes that could have been so much more impactful if it was a character that potentially doesn't really have a future within the story anymore, that was taken out in that moment. Like, realistically, when do you think we're going to have a story arc that heavily focuses on the Pussycats or Gang Orca ever again? I think there was really, like, a prime opportunity to take those characters out in a meaningful way, as opposed to being like, whatever, they're fine after all of this. And the only one that I sort of excuse is Wash, because you have that great moment where Wash gets out of character a couple chapters ago and finally begins to speak. And so I think if you're going to do something like that with the characters, then I feel a lot better about it. But if it's just going to be something where everybody's fine and, you know, they're going to recover in the hospital and we're all good, I'm not gonna be too thrilled.
I do wonder if, like, we might still get that with the Pussycat Dolls, because the Pussycat Dolls were excited because they were, like, still on the popularity poll or whatever. And so now they might go back down, or they might, because we got Crust, or no, not Crust, sorry, the Armored Hero retiring.
See, and so that too, even like, that goes back to another like completely missed opportunity to me. Is I feel like you could have had a character again that's been present within the story, that's been somebody that we've been with for a long time, and we've been with a lot of characters since the beginning. I mean, you think of like season 1, Mount Lady, Kamui Woods. There's a lot of heroes that are open to the possibility of, you know, really fleshing out their stories that we've been with for a very, very long time, and all of a sudden, like, okay, you get like this Nobunaga samurai guy retiring. That would have been so much more impactful if it was a character that we've been with since season 1 that we followed. And so I think it's just kind of stuff like that. I think it's the hindrance that comes from really bloating the cast with almost too many characters and heroes.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that, like, because the thing is, though, it's a lot of like, oh, what might happen next, but the thing is, though, we
Right,
don't
right.
know, and it might be, and also you can only really judge on what's happening, as well as you still got to judge on how we get
Yes.
there. Because I think my problem with the Endeavor stuff is it took so long, and it just like people weren't sure how to react, and we got like new information slowly, and so like some people got very hard set on how they felt. So when it changed, it was like, oh my god. So like I don't know. That's enough. I think Horikoshi plays the long game maybe a little bit too much.
And I mean, I don't
Sometimes.
mind that. Again, I'm a fan of like a lot of long running shonen. I'm cool with that if you want to play the long game. But I think I came to the realization at the end of the war arc that the story's going in a direction where it wasn't where I expected, and it's not what I expected's like the wrong word. I feel like I don't want to say I expected more of Horikoshi. But also, like, I feel like I expected more of Horikoshi after everything that happened with Overhaul and Pro Hero and stuff. I feel like he's done such a good job. Like, and we brought this up earlier as well with, you know, getting to actually see injuries on the characters and how that affects the way they fight. I mean, you get that with Mirako even in the laboratory, and she's just like bombarding all these different Nomu, and you really see like the toll that it's taking on her body. And, you know, not really seeing fallout of that and seeing a lot of these things sort of, going back to not necessarily normal, but these characters, you know, going back almost to a little bit of a status quo is disappointing to me. And again, he could be playing a long game, and this is something that we might see more of in the future. And I'm happy to change my mind on this, right? But now I feel like, okay, we're pretty much at the end of the war arc now. It's like the prison break stuff is happening. I don't think we're going to get a lot more of this, especially now with the stuff with Dabi and Shoto and Endeavor. It feels like, okay, well, that's the next step for their story. So it'll probably be a while.
Yeah, I'm hopeful, but who knows? And Poseidon had another one. Was there an arc that hits different or went up or down in your rankings on a reread?
I think this is like a weird one, but the Forest Camp training arc does. Yeah, not just rereading it, but also rewatching it. I remember being really annoyed with Coda the first time. The first time I read it, I was very annoyed by Coda. I wasn't as hype on the stuff with Muscular as I am now when I go back and rewatch it. And I'm like, damn, that fight's amazing. So.
And I know Brendan at Bopun's, we kind of already covered their question. Basically, he also goes on to say, like, Eraserhead lost a leg, Bakugo won't die because of plot. But I think if Torino died, stakes would have been more balanced. That's the thing, is I kind of really like, I guess I'm obviously on a different level of agreement with Roger, that, like, I think Midnight being the one to pass away makes it that much, because she's kind of like peripheral, where she's still major, but she's not super major. And I do think as well that if more heroes had died, the public would have been more sympathetic to heroes.
Sure.
But since not as many did, it makes it extra them being like, you just fucked up, and like, I want to kind of know the civilian death count. Like, I almost want a kind of like Chainsaw Man, like, names on listed things.
Sure.
I guess like, I don't, sorry, and like, but obviously not doing the same thing, but I feel like if Gran Torino had died, it would have been like his story. Like, I think he needs that scene with All Might, but also it feels like it'll be a rehash of Night Eye.
Yep. See, I mean, like, I'm clearly not alone. Yeah. Like, I said this on Twitter, and people got so angry with me and frustrated with me about this, and I didn't understand. And I think that speaks to like the greater issue with the My Hero fandom at large. And I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to speak with you guys about it, because this is something you deal with every week. You know, even going down to the fact that like Caleb has to lock his account, Horikoshi getting death threats with some of the early stuff with Endeavor. I just feel like, and you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, the fandom seems much younger than a lot of the other shonen fandoms that are out there. I think some of these series have been going on for a really long time. Things like Attack on Titan, things like One Piece, where I think the audience has sort of grown up with it. Whereas My Hero kind of feels like the young one among the bunch. And I feel like obviously there are those of us who are adults that love the series, but I do think that the audience skews younger. And I think that immaturity comes through within the fandom in droves, especially with the way that like Twitter works, where you quote retweet something and then it causes another bombarding of tweets and all this other stuff. to then where it gets to the point where, like, if you simply don't think that Horikoshi's a god, then how could you possibly have any thoughts on this at all whatsoever? I mean, the deifying of these mangaka is something I've never been a fan of. This goes to One Piece with the whole thing with Goda. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's the same thing with Horikoshi. Like, it's fine as a meme, but when you actually get down to it, if you see these mangaka as being, you know, untouchable and everything they're doing is exactly right, and the story has to follow in this exact way, or you get upset thinking that, you know, a general critique about the series is coming from a place of, you know, your theories being wrong or something, which is not the case at all. Like, that's ludicrous. I'm here to enjoy the story just like anybody else is. The only difference is that because I'm reviewing and reacting to stuff online, a lot of people seem to take that as gospel. And I think it's important to be like, no, I'm a person like, you know, everybody else. You guys have a podcast, but you're just the same as any other manga fan that's reading this, just because you're doing it week to week. And I think people lose sight of that amongst like Twitter and social media in general. So I think that speaks to the fandom at large, as opposed to really an issue with the story. I think right now, like, I'm just interested to see where Horikoshi's going to take it. But it's very difficult for me to engage in that criticism on Twitter when people just want to close it all off.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people sometimes need to, like, I feel bad saying chill, but
no,
like,
but it's correct.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah, I think it's take a deep breath. I think ultimately, the word of advice I would give to people is, if you don't like hearing criticism of your series, there's plenty of places where you don't have to listen to that. Like, don't listen to a podcast critiquing it every week. Don't watch a review or reaction of it if you know the person's not going to enjoy it as much as you do. And like, I get, you know, the world is hard right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. People are going through a lot. I mean, look at what's going on even in Texas right now with the snowstorm.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there's something every single week. Plus COVID is still happening. So I totally understand people wanting manga or anime as that sort of escape. But at the end of the day, like, criticism isn't going anywhere. And just, if you don't want it, don't search it out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we can jump on to the next one. We get one from our league at our league 270. Roger, do you feel Endeavor is being retconned? Do you feel like, thanks to Horikoshi's retconning of Endeavor, this makes Dabi look like a clown that turned into a psycho for very weak reasons?
That's like a loaded question right there.
Yes, let's go to the first one, because that was actually two different tweets. I merged them, but let's go to the first one.
Do I feel Endeavor's being in what way? I'm curious.
That's
like,
the same thought I
how
had.
is he being he's always been a dick. Like, well, I don't understand.
Yeah. I think people are mad that he used to not be a dick. That the idea that he wasn't that bad at first, and then he got really bad, and then he slowly worked his way back up to being less. Or also, I think the main thing I would say that's good for the Todoroki family is being able to look back at the past and be like, this was wrong. That it was bad. We pretended it wasn't bad, but it was. And I think like now kind of being okay, as a family, we're gonna move forward. I think is a but I think maybe the line of just like, you're not the only one who's responsible rubbed me the wrong way mainly. But I don't think it's retconning. I think it's more just like kind of recontextualizing or like understanding. It doesn't make me like Endeavor anymore. I don't hate Endeavor with a burning passion as much as maybe I did in the past. He's like a complex character, but this flashback just makes me more like kind of sad for him. And I'm sorry if you think 13-year-old, if you do not feel sympathy for Toya in this flashback, I don't know what to tell you. So like,
I agree completely. I have no other. I mean, you said it.
Yeah, because I guess like people are gonna read it differently. But like, he's 13. He's like, I think even the way he talks, you can tell he's immature, and he kind of has that like, I'm right and I'm like big brained of thinking about this. Yeah. That I like genuinely do think there is someone else talking to Toya, or like something is wrong. But I don't know what, or it could, maybe he's just like kind of as well as like a weird kid. He is very isolated. He doesn't have friends, so like it could just be that. Because I do kind of feel like that if it was, because I feel it can't be All for One. If it's All for One being like, haha, I puppeted the strings here, I'll be mad because like
there's also another thing with that same like question that he says that makes Dobby look like a clown that turned into a psycho for very weak reasons. I don't understand how that would seem like weak reasons for Toya to like go mad about, because first of all, we didn't even see like the very first like part of his life where we don't know how hard Endeavor tried to drill that whole, you know, you gotta be number one mentality to him. to the point. And he was also I believe he's also the first child, which also has to do with like attention to when you get, when there's more siblings involved and stuff like that too as well. So they're very valid reasons. I just don't understand how it was a weak reason. And then when I first read it, I really thought he was talking about power-wise, and it took a whole lot like for me not to like screen cap and be like, "Yo, this opinion is wrong." But
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I guess I'm sorry for kind of like calling you out on this podcast, but you tweeted that, so I don't know.
Reaping and sowing. Reaping and sowing.
I probably
That's good. I won't be the one getting all the hate then. That's great. I feel good about that. That's
good. I'm sorry, our league, but I don't know. To each their own.
Sure.
But someone did a response. This is AP at AM Izu Band. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. Oh, that makes more sense. It's capitalized. And they say, he didn't get retconned. Remember, we only got info on Endeavor's backstory from Shoto, in which Endeavor was at his worst because of Toya. That's the thing. The cause of Toya part is, it wasn't, like, I don't think we can really blame Toya. But I don't know. If it was, like, Rei, who we got the flashbacks from, then it would be a retcon.
Sure,
I can see it, yeah.
I think that's fair. And I think in a later one, some people gotten into an argument back and forth, and I kind of stopped doing. I was like, I'm not.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. But some of it's very valid. It's interesting discussion to have. I don't need to have it on here. And then we got another one from @FPretice saying, doesn't it feel like Endeavor's past mistakes have been significantly nerfed with these past chapters? I liked the theme of his change and redemption, but making his past better looking seems like a bad direction to take here. Did we read the same chapter?
Yeah, I also don't feel like this person is alone, though, in feeling this.
Yeah.
Because this is a sentiment that I'll see from a lot of people that are My Hero fans as well. So I really don't know. I really don't know. In terms of like a bad direction to take, I think that goes back to what I'm saying, right? It's like, it depends on what game Horikoshi is playing, right? It's like, if he's playing this long game with these characters, then we just got to have to wait it out. If it's something that's going to be resolved in like 4 or 5 chapters, which I highly doubt, we'll see.
I think it's people maybe mainly reacting to 301, where he started out seeming a bit more normal, but still very much obsessed and still like not that good of a person. And then, I apologize for maybe being a bit too harsh when I said, did we read the same chapter? Because we're going to interpret stuff differently. But I really liked the, are you just running away? But then it ties into, I think, Fiyumi later on saying like, oh, giving up is what he's worst at. Or it might have been Rei saying that. They look all very similar, so sometimes it's hard to tell which one is which. But I don't know, I guess I don't think of it a retcon or like a nerfing. Like we see here, he legit straight out, like he beat his wife. Or he hit her or knocked her down in some capacity. Which we didn't really know for sure, even from the Shoto flashback. We just got, like, the don't bully mom, or, like, I don't want to be, like, someone who bullies mommy. So, like, arguably, this makes him look worse. But I think it's kind of, I guess, the fact, like, I don't know. I can't go into your mind, or I'm probably not going to convince you this either, so I apologize. If also, I'm not always right. Like Roger said, if you disagree with me, please feel free to do so.
Yeah.
You do, but please, you don't need to tweet it at me either.
See, I always welcome people tweeting it at me if it's something where like they actually want to have a discussion. But it's very clear from like the tone of certain tweets where people already have their mind made up, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna. I get all these people tweeting things at me every day. It's like, I'm not gonna read your stupid thing. Like, I'm sorry, you know.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's what that person was doing.
Not this person. I'm saying my fans. Yeah.
Yes. No, sorry. But I don't know. I think, because I definitely do want to do in the future a podcast with some people who are more former fans of MHA and talking about Endeavor, because he's a whole pot of worms, and I kind of have it a little bit planned out. I was basically waiting until the end of the Endeavor bit, but when will that ever come? This might be the closest thing. So next break, stay tuned, folks, if you want something to really get mad about. Don't listen to that episode, because I will not look at your responses. But I apologize. I do like people sending us comments. I'm just scared of them.
That's the issue I'm talking about, though. And like, I understand that like this is not exclusively a My Hero Academia fandom thing. There's obviously toxic fandoms, and there's like a vocal minority of people who are toxic in every community, of every shonen, of every game. I mean, this is like for every type of entertainment, you're always going to get that toxic side of things. But it just seems like it's elevated by like Twitter and social media and a lot of TikTok and things like that with My Hero more than a lot of other series, which is like, I think, I don't know. I don't want to say that like the fandom needs to be knocked down a peg a little bit, but I almost kind of feel like it's too new and too young and sort of does need to grow up before it can really continue in any meaningful way.
And I think like My Hero is also dealing with like really touchy stuff like child abuse and actually looking into it and going really hard, and people kind of getting a split of either being like, I really love Endeavor, and like I don't mind that. If you want to love Endeavor, go for it. And then people on the other side maybe being like, oh, he's the worst ever. And then now the story is giving a more mixed, and I don't even know if I agree with the story, but then people interpret differently. I don't know. I think My Hero definitely does, not that other shonen doesn't, but like this is, I feel like in most shonen, I feel like Horikoshi's grown as an author. Like we get the Shoto flashback, and it was kind of bare bones, and it was kind of what you might see from like something like Naruto, when like they only tell, okay, spoilers for the Chunin, you've read the Chunin exam, so you know with the Hinata's not brother, Neji, her cousin, Neji, the reveal like, oh, there's something about his dad, and then we didn't tell you until now. And it's very like simple and like,
it's like you couldn't have given him this scroll beforehand and it explained that his dad was actually a good guy. Yeah.
But then here you kind of see like people do have like different reactions as well as kind of different internalizing stuff, and kind of I like seeing different perspectives of stuff. I don't always agree with it. I'm rambling. Let's jump to the next question. I'm sorry, people. And then we got from Ethan at Light Sora saying, what are you guys hoping for? Or wait, yeah, for the next chapter. It seems like the whole Todoroki family talk is over for now. God, I hope so. With maybe a conclusion in the first 2 or 3 pages of 303. Deku waking up, more confirmed deaths and or survival, more traitor discussion. I'm on the side that I don't care about the traitor thing, because I feel like, I don't know if I guess All For One is probably the only one who knows who the traitor is. But let's jump to it. Let's go first with Roger. What are you hoping for?
Yeah, more chapter? Confirmed depths would be great. I think that'd be excellent. I feel like not that I necessarily expect it, but I think that would be like a welcome surprise. Or like seeing how people survived. I think like what the effects of the attacks were, right? Not necessarily, I don't necessarily need everybody to die for the conclusion of this to be good, but I do want to see some actual repercussions with the heroes themselves, or, like you were talking about earlier too, like a death count of all of the cities that were ravaged by this, of like the civilians in general, like seeing this more of the civilian side of things, and the takedown sort of like the hero society from being on this pedestal to now, like, what do we even have these heroes for if this is the case, if something like this is going to happen? Like that type of drama is really fascinating to me. So I'd love to see more of that.
Derek or James?
What I would look forward to next chapter, I mean, I know we're all kind of wanting to see Deku, but I still think that we maybe just like like the dream sequence kind of thing. Which maybe we'll probably get like half a chapter of that or something, or maybe a couple pages, maybe.
Derek?
I know for a fact I know what I don't want. I don't want to see Hawks with his no wing having ass anywhere in this next page. No. We've seen a lot of Hawks, a lot of the Todorokis. Genus can go too. Just go away for a little bit, guys. I want to see class 1A or 1B. Like I just want to see like the repercussions of what's all this, like, but if I see Hawks show up, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm like, you've been around for so much these last like couple chapters. You got your little chapter. Go on, buddy. It's fine. We'll see you later.
You got your sad backstory.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I was worried he was going to walk in and be like, hi guys, you should definitely, I guess like they've already kind of reached that conclusion of being like, we need to stop Toya. It doesn't just, you need to do it, but it doesn't just have to be you.
It's all of us.
Or just Shoto either. It's all of us, even though like they're like civilians and what are they going to do? But like, I think maybe he would talk to Rei, because I think when she said still calls me mom, I thought she was talking about Toya.
Oh.
Because I think even in the previous chapter, he did list off the people and said mom instead of like Endeavor or something.
That's
but
interesting.
I don't know, because he even says like, here, you're guilty too, because he's an edgelord, a sad child who's an edgelord. I'm sorry, Dabby. Please don't. But I don't know. So I'm just like, I agree. I kind of want Hawk to leave, but maybe he'll walk in and be like, okay, guys, we need to do a rehab of somebody's reputation. I'm your manager again, remember? Or like producer. And just being like, Goofy, I really want to see 1A.
Same.
I've been thinking too much about who might leave, who might not, because I really think that is a good way to show the impact on hero society. Will they even do people still want to be heroes? Or like even still have hero schools where you go in at high school.
Yeah, that's
And
what
I think
gonna
those would be legitimate consequences that I think would be meaningful because we've been with those characters for a long time. I am in complete agreement with you. I think if we see some of the 1A kids drop out and what that means for the story, and you go through their thought process after seeing all of this, that would be really fascinating.
Yeah. Or even like the school closing down.
Sure.
Maybe. But honestly, I was really hoping for a student death. I feel bad to say it, and I don't think I even said it on podcast. But if a student had died, it would have just hit us
I mean,
so
the
hard.
opportunity was there for Hato, and it just didn't happen. So
I mean,
but even Hato, like I mean a Class A kid. I mean a Class A kid. But that would have been like heartbreaking and awful. But then I feel like I don't want it to happen either. But I feel like what's actually going to happen is we're going to go back to Deku and he's going to talk to the spirit guys and they're going to be like, oh, we have a healing quirk for you. And he can go, okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's...
There, I just spoiled 303 for you. I don't want it to happen, but I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Oh, boy.
But I am happy to be wrong. Horikoshi can prove me wrong any day, I will be thrilled.
I think the schools would, my theory would be the schools would shut down just because, like, it kind of just seems pointless after this whole war arc.
Yeah.
To me, anyways.
Yeah, and I really, really want, like, midnight, the students being sad over midnight, and kind of just hitting with that. Also, like, you need a new teacher. Are they going to get a replacement teacher? And just, like, I don't know, like, I really want Mineta to be like, oh my god, women are more than just boobs. They can die. I need that.
That literally sounds like that's going to be one of his upcoming lines. Wow.
Or, like, they're human beings with feelings. They can die. And just, like, kind of having that hit him. Because, like, honestly, Mineta's grown on me more than he's not grown on me. I started out not liking him that much, and now he's actually shut the fuck up lately and not been a creeper. Anyways, I guess traitor discussion. I guess I don't really care about the traitor, and I don't know if it'll get brought. I feel like it's past the time it would have been brought up, but maybe the traitor student will just leave. Like, they could be a student who just leaves and decides they can't be the traitor anymore, and they can't be.
Honestly, it feels like the traitor is irrelevant now for me. It's just like.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting because it would be kind of like you could place the blame. Could you place the blame of what happened at the war arc on them at all? Because the Kiros kind of went after them.
Scapegoat.
Because of Hawks' information.
Shift the blame on the one person.
Yeah.
But the Vlad King thing is just sticking with me because it kind of really, really, really shake the faith of heroes. But I guess my unpopular opinion is that Present Mike should have died.
Oh, no, I agree with you. He probably... Present Mike or Aizawa, one of the two. I mean, yeah, Aizawa was maimed, but...
If Aizawa died,
that would have been a huge moment, though, I feel like. But I am right there with you. I think Present Mike would have been a great opportunity as well. So...
Because then, like, Eraserhead would have been all alone. Because, like, all of his, like, childhood friends, besides, like, Cloud Boy, who's a Nomu now, and just be like, I lost everything. But maybe that's not, like, My Hero is a happy story, at least. It's like, I don't know. I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that like it is a fairly optimistic series, even though right now it's not so optimistic. And then this is a question from at rleague270. When did MHA start going downhill for Roger? I don't even know if you can agree with that sentiment.
It's not. Well, I mean, I do agree with the sentiment in general that it's gone downhill from me since sort of like the end of the stuff with Endeavor, like the Pro Hero arc. The first moment where I was getting fatigue was Joint Training, was the first part, which is odd because I went back and reread Joint Training, and that goes back to one of the questions earlier, like, oh, have you reread things that, you didn't initially like? When I first read Joint Training, it felt like it was like 100 chapters. And I went back, and when I reread it in a day because it's 24 chapters. It's super fast. But I think when you're going through it week to week, or even when you're doing it like on a binge on a read through, and you have all these other characters that are being introduced with all of these different quirks from 1B, and obviously we want to see more of the other class, like that's something that we've been waiting for, but the pacing of the whole thing was kind of off to me. And especially coming off of 3 arcs that for me really hit, like going from Overhaul into the school festival into Pro Hero. And I would even argue like the remedial course stuff really landed for me with Kami and with Todoroki and stuff. I just thought that was great. And then when I don't know, I just like probably Joint Training is when it started to go downhill. And then MVA I liked actually quite a bit up until like the Shigaraki sympathy stuff. And for me, that just like didn't land at all. And I understand that for a lot of people it really did. So I don't want to like invalidate your opinions. And like, please don't allow my thought process on Shigaraki to take away from your enjoyment or what you felt of it at all. But yeah, it really did not land for me at all. And I think then moving on from that, I thought, okay, well, at least the stakes are going to be raised and things are going to happen moving into this war arc. And then, the stuff with Miracle was awesome. And I thought, okay, this is getting really good. And then the war arc's like getting up. And then kind of came crashing down to where it was and how I felt sort of like during Joint Training. And sort of how I felt again at the end of MVA as well. Which is, again, not to say that like I hate it. People just assume that me not liking it as much as I did, which was like being obsessive over it and rereading chapters all the time and doing weekly reactions. That was the kind of thing, that was the moment when I really, really loved it. And now I just enjoy it on my own. So, yeah. But I certainly still think it's enjoyable.
Nice. I think for me, Class A versus B is probably maybe near the top of one of my favorite arcs because it's just so fun. Because I really like it. I really like seeing. Okay, it's not like the top one, but maybe top 6 or 5 or something. How many arcs are there? But I guess like the ending for it, the fact multi-quirk Deku, I think is still controversial to some people, including me a little bit. So I think that might be the part where like my hero changed a little
Well, that was actually something that people brought up to me when I did my reaction to that chapter. And people were surprised that I liked the multi-quirk Deku thing. But I did. I enjoyed it. I think my main concern now is he's been getting these quirks really fast at this point. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, if he's playing the long game, this just seems very odd to me. Like I responded to a tweet, this was a while ago, if you guys don't mind me reading this. Well, I tweeted out, I said, I clown on it more often than not due to the current state of the fan base, but some of my heroes' earlier arcs, such as Sports Festival, Stain, and Overhaul in the manga, are out of this world, and Pro Hero to me is still one of the best things I read in Jump. To which this guy named Roderick responded and said, even though you liked this recent chapter of MHA, it's clear that you don't seem as invested in this series as you once were. If you could give out a couple tweaks, solutions, or possibly the premise of an arc to get you invested into the story of MHA again, what would it be? And so I wrote this list of 5 bullet points. And I said, following through on raised stakes, which I think we've talked about a little bit, easing up on the villain's sympathy, which I know is odd coming off of this chapter that I actually really enjoyed with the stuff with Dabi. But I think it's more so like the idolization of some of these heroes, right? And I think we're going in a direction where a lot of people are being freed after this prison arc, where I could see them being like, oh no, but this is why they're this way, so you should really like them. And I don't really want to go in that direction. And the third thing I brought up was, please give us more time between Deku's new quirk activations. I feel like if the story is playing the long game, we could really take our time with this, as opposed to, the way I feel like in the last, 25 chapters, 30 chapters, he's activated how many new ones? Just 2? Just 2?
I think because he got...
And he got at the end of Joint Training was the beginning of Black Whip. So yeah, it feels like it's been much faster than I would have liked. Even from Joint Training to where we are right now, that's only been 50-something chapters. And so for 3 quirk activations to happen in that short amount of time is just kind of strange to me. And then the same things we brought up earlier, the arc with a threatening villain that's not Shigaraki or All for One, and the tightening of the core cast. And I think we've hit on that so many points during the podcast that people probably understand at this point.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite for me, that I kind of agree. I feel like I don't know if we really need a sympathy story for Dabi. I'm glad we got it, but I'm the opposite, that I liked it for Shigaraki. Maybe, I think you're right. Not every villain has to be, oh no, here's their sob story. Right. This is why you should like them. All for One should not get one of those. He's just a dick. He's always been an evil asshole. The way I remember, it's All for One. A first. A is for asshole. That is how I remember. I don't mix up One for All and All for One anymore because of that. So, I don't know. We'll see what Horikoshi does, but let's jump to, this is the one where I almost consider not reading it. But this is from @Serene @Alolivar saying, as specific as possible, please explain what are stakes and consequences.
Sure. So I laughed when I first read that because you were like, do you really want to answer this on the show? I'm happy to answer this on the show. Sure. Because I think Some people genuinely think they're the same thing and they're not. So consequences are the result of something happening, right? The consequence of this current war arc is that people are losing faith in heroes, right? I think that's like that's a consequence of what's happened. A stake, like stakes involving something within a story, is sort of what can be gained from a certain situation and what can be lost. And so the way that I would identify a stake would be character deaths is one big thing. You know, the loss of a major character versus the loss of a character that's in the background that nobody really cares about. The loss of Midnight and Gran Torino versus the loss of Crust and Majestic. They're on a different level, right? And so I think that's another way to look at it too. I think even in terms of stakes, it's, again, the follow through of things that have been set up within the story, right? The war arc was very high risk for the villains and for the heroes, for both of them, right? I mean, there was a lot to lose with Hero Society, with the death of so many characters, not just heroes and villains, but also civilians. So there's a lot of stuff at stake within that situation. So then when you move away from the greater picture of it, and you see that panel with Midnight and Crust and Majestic and a bunch of no-names, and that's the result, that's the result of the stakes, right? It's a consequence of the stakes, but it's not a consequence necessarily of the story arc as a whole. So I would say that would be the best way to differentiate it for me. I do not think that there were no consequences of the war arc at all. And I think people took that initial tweet that I made as that being the case. And that was not what I was saying at all. What I was saying is that I expected more follow through on the stakes. And so I actually think that should paint a clearer picture and maybe explains it to people who thought one thing or the other.
Yeah. I might even try to further clarify the stakes is kind of like I'm gonna put the bet in of like someone puts the bet in of like $200 and someone else bets like 500. You're like, oh no, they've gone all in, and it turns out they didn't go all in.
Right.
And that it's actually they only lost this much. So it's kind of like stakes are more like the potential and kind of like hypothetical stuff, and then consequence is more what actually happens, and kind of like consequences not matching the expectation of the stake. Like you think, I think, and I think, like, I don't necessarily agree completely, because I think the consequence of them losing faith in heroes is maybe bigger than some deaths.
Sure.
But obviously we are allowed to disagree, and we don't, like, I think we've both discussed it enough that, like, to each their own.
But
really.
I also agree with you on that point, though. No, I think, like, I think the consequence of people losing faith in the heroes could absolutely have a huge impact on the story. It's just in the fallout that we've seen as of yet, hasn't really been that. It's mostly been on these character stories, which is what brings in, my main worry of potentially going back to the school and, none of the heroes dropping out and going back to maybe, theorizing who the the traitor is or something like that. And I don't really want that at that point, when you've really built up this story and you have all these characters on the run, I think there's so much more you can do with it. I mean, I've said this time and time again, I think My Hero Academia could really use a time skip. I really do. I feel like a time skip could do wonders for this series because you could then see the immediate results of everything that's happened after this war arc of people losing faith in the heroes and all of that. And then we get to go back and actually experience what happened during those 2 years while Deku and the other students are now actual pro heroes. And they have to deal with a society that no longer trusts them. That's a really fascinating direction to take the story.
Yeah. And we just gotta wait and see, and that's the problem. We have to keep saying it, but it makes sense because you can't like give us everything all at once. But you could maybe give us a bit more. I'm just trying to think. I am worried because Horikoshi really likes doing the really dramatic arc and then kind of the more relaxed student stuff. So I worry we're gonna go get a really studenty thing because UA really likes to double down on being like, oh, we just got attacked, let's do this.
But I think the studenty thing could absolutely go back to what I was talking about and have actual real consequences if, like you brought up, the students are dropping out and they no longer have faith in the heroes, or if the traitor reveal implements one of the teachers.
And kind of like maybe trying to put up that like, serene thing and then it cracking. So kind of like, I think you have like WandaVision where you're pretending everything's okay and you can clearly see weird shit's going on in the background. So I think that's my kind of hope. And then we go more, and we've talked a lot, I apologize, but general questions and comments. This is from @JoseFK9. at MJ Pod, I thought we were going to get 26 issues of Koma Deku in the land of the Vistas, a Sid and Marty Croft production. But it looks like we're going to deal with shirtless Dabi, which should make Allison very happy. Because every time there's a shirtless guy, Allison's like, yeah, I like that! And I am very happy that we did get a moment to actually sit with the Endeavor stuff and actually address it and kind of like focus on it. But now I'm ready to move on. Like, I want to see the impact to the society as well as like the class. But I don't like. We could go back to Deku and then he can go and talk to the Vestiges and shit. But I'm also like, I'm more interested in anything else.
Give it a little bit of time to like.
Yes. And then we got one from Luke at
Luke.
LJ_Hollywood, a grim chapter. Luke, a grim chapter this week, but I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion nonetheless. I definitely enjoyed the discussion. I guess the chapter when it was such a bummer that I finished it and I was just like, I don't even want to talk about it. But,
Really?
But
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
I just felt like. But now I like talking about it. Where it actually like I couldn't stop talking about it, as you can see. But. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to comment on is I really, really love the, like, look at me thing, because it makes me think of Assassination Classroom that had a really good version. I might have even said this last week. A very good kind of with that dynamic between a teacher and the student who was like, notice me, like, actually have to look at me. And, like, Endeavor trying to pass it on to Ray. And Ray, like, I don't know, she can't just focus on one kid and, like, she can't, like, stop him from like leaving. I don't know. It's just different types of actually seeing someone, and Ray didn't see him the way he wanted to be seen as I Endeavor. Yada yada yada. Okay. Are any other parting comments about the chapter?
It was good.
Chapter good.
Yes. Chapter sad. And Roger, thank you so much for coming on. We put you maybe a little bit in the hot seat on some points.
Oh no, I mean I love that. That's why I came on in the first place. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I keep doing what you guys are doing. It's awesome. I love listening in whenever I get the chance to listen in. And I'm happy to actually talk with other My Hero fans. And like I said, to clear the air. Like I think this is just one of those things where people they take tweets out of context or see things that I'm saying and they think like I'm just hating on it, where that's not the case at all. I mean, I laughed because I quote tweeted one of these. I just thought it was like the funniest thing is somebody, I was mentioning like stakes and consequences and all this stuff. And then somebody tweeted at me and the actual tweet that this person made, I'm going to read this up because it's just perfect. They responded, how about Alabasta in One Piece, where Pell died and it was just a fake out? How come I don't see you speaking about that and hating that? Well, I responded and I was like, I poke fun at that all the time. It's literally a point in my community in which we call it the Will of P, that characters with P in their name never actually die. You've got Pell, you've got Pound, you've got Pagaya. It is literally a meme in my videos and within the community. So it's not something that I like in One Piece either. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying, right? Is I think One Piece has sort of set itself up in a situation where I don't expect major deaths every story arc. I don't, because realistically we had like two really major ones that happened in present time during the pre-time skip era. And now there are more characters actually dying and getting hurt, and the stakes have been raised because now we're dealing with Emperors of the Sea, but at the same time, I'm still not expecting it from that series. Well, whereas like with My Hero Academia, because as I mentioned earlier, with the way that, Horikoshi draws the effects of these attacks, even like just the emotional impact, like it doesn't necessarily need to be that characters die. Like you said, it could be characters drop out of the school, characters lose faith in the Hero Society. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. And I just feel like I didn't see it with enough characters that I find important enough for me to really care. But it's certainly something that I don't like in One Piece either. So there's plenty of stuff I hate in One Piece. I've been very vocal about. You want to, if you want to just be sure of the fact that I'm not some One Piece stan, please go watch my reviews and reactions from the Whole Cake Island era, because man, oh man, was I harsh on it. So
I think like if you can love something and be harsh on it,
that's totally fine. Yeah. And I understand, that some people don't want to have that, right? They just want to be able to go enjoy something, and that's fine. But then don't seek it out. That's my advice to you. Yeah. Don't go look for it.
Don't make yourself.
Right? Why would you do this? There's so many wonderful things in this world. Focus on the things that make you happy, not the things that make you upset.
Yay. But let's start to run it. Or Roger, where can we
Sure.
find
You can
you?
find me at Rogersbase on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on Instagram. I'm currently doing a watch through of Naruto for the very first time on Twitch every Monday, Friday, and Saturday. And I'm uploading my reaction recaps every Thursday. And then, of course, I cover every Sunday, according to the official release, the live reaction review of the newest chapters of One Piece, as well as the newest episodes of Attack on Titan and the newest chapters of Attack on Titan each month. We only have 2 months left. Things are getting pretty exciting. And so, yeah, I'm a busy guy right now.
I pipe. And I think we talked a little bit pre-recording about like some Shonen Jump series that you maybe wanted to shout out a
Oh,
little
yeah,
bit. Or you don't have
ITLC.
to.
Man, if you're not reading ITLC, go read
Yes.
it. Fantastic. ITLC, Kaiju number 8's another one. I think Kaiju
Oh,
number 8 is a
finally
lot
coming to
of
the
people are
States.
sleeping on
I'm
it.
so hyped.
Yes, finally, yes.
Woo!
And then I've also, I've been reading, in addition to not making content on it, of course, I've been reading My Hero Academia. I've been reading Jujutsu Kaisen, and I've been watching the latest season of ReZero. So,
Woo! ReZero just makes me sad, but it's happier now. But I'm also just like, I used to just feel dread, but now it's
It's like, just
more
give me
I feel
happy.
auto. That's all I want.
Yeah, but also Jujutsu Kaisen is my nemesis now because I love it and I like kind of want to do a
It's so
podcast
good.
about it, but I just don't have the time or commitment.
well, I gotta be
but I
honest. I
love
was
it.
debating doing a very toxic, but also in good fun, Jujutsu Kaisen versus My Hero Academia stream in the near future.
Ooh.
So if you're down,
Ooh.
all three of you are
I
invited.
would
Oh,
be
wow,
down.
yeah, that'd be
That
fun.
sounds like
They are kind of similar. They are kind of similar in the fact like how fast
Yes,
paced they try
yes.
to be. Because like not that that's bad, but like you can clearly see it. But anyways, I've gotten sidetracked again. But stay tuned for that, maybe. James, where can we
You
find
can
you?
find me on Twitter at @ThatOneWelderGuy for all your welding needs. And as Kendra mentioned earlier, I host 2 podcasts: the Kicking Stones podcast, a Dr. Stone manga read-through podcast, as well as the Weeb Jammin' podcast, where it's just a bunch of weebs just talking about anime. And you can follow that at Jammin' Weeb.
Yay. Nice. And Derek, where can we
You
find
can
you?
find me on Twitter at Great Big Sword. You can also find me on Kicking Stones at dr_stone_pod with James as we go through Dr. Stone and try and like manifest our will to stop Boichi from drawing chicks from like with their spine snapped in half and like I gotta get the boob and the ass shot in the same pan. We're like, Boichi, stop! Why you chain smoking cigarettes? Also, what happened? Yeah, no, it's a fun time.
Gotta say, Boichi does a great job with the One Piece characters,
Oh,
though. I gotta
it's
say,
so
man,
good.
that shot of Jinbei, whoo!
So good. And you can also find me over on the Good Friends Anime Club at Good Friends Cast, where we talk bi-weekly, not really, about anime and manga. Had an episode come out recently. We should have something in the works too. That would be fun. We'll see. And also, shouts out Undead Unluck
Nice.
if we're just shouting out a Shonen Jump series. It's been
Heck
so good.
yeah,
It's been
heck
so
yeah.
good.
Yes, I feel like Undead Unluck is ending.
I could see it.
now
I
or
could really
something.
see it, but I hope not. It's so good.
I need to get back into it.
But okay. Oh, I just want to say I might cut this out, but I cannot enter in Derek your at thing. I do like giant sword bit like I can't do it. I'm like, where the fuck is Derek? Why can't I search him to add him to things?
I'm making that my title now.
can't do it. I
Giant
have to
Sword
look it
Big.
up.
I like that.
You're gonna get it confused, and you're gonna like at his Gunpla channel, the Great Beam Saber.
No, like every time I try to add him, it's like I have to stop and like,
Oh,
I'm like,
at
why
my
can't I find
Gunpla Twitter at Great Beam Sword.
But sorry, still find him, listeners. Just don't search the right word. But you can find me on Twitter at Sniper of My Heart, and I also do a podcast about Haikyuu. But we're on hiatus right now. But that's the View from Top at Haikyuu Pod. And I do want to say, like as Roger mentioned earlier, Texas is still being really hit hard by the after effects of the storm and power, as well as more water now. Is I would say the main issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really sad. But I would say, like, consider donating any way you can. There's a lot of mutual aid foundations. I think the American Red Cross is also always a good bet. And you can also choose, like, current disasters or, like, more, like, specialized things. But whatever, I also try to share links on the podcast as well.
I was going to say, that also reminds me,
know.
I think FEMA might be doing a lost wages assistance program for what's been going on with the winter storm right now. So that might be something some people might look at the FEMA site.
Definitely look into that, because I think like we actually have a lot of listeners in Texas, or it's all James. It's up for debate, but I hope you guys are doing okay, and I hope the world's crazy right now, but if you can help out a little bit, that's great. If you can't, share links or just take care of yourself. That's
Absolutely.
really real thing. I'm trying to think of a funny segue, but it's hard to now. So get hot. I was gonna do the Hulk one, but it wasn't that funny. Because Roger, I make them yell plus ultra at the end.
Oh, I'm down. I
It's
do plus
slightly
ultra at the end of all my
hostage.
read-throughs. I'm totally down. You give me a 3, 2, 1 countdown. We all scream plus ultra. I'm here for it.
Okay. Yay. Okay. So I would say first I say go beyond, and then you guys. Okay. So don't burn yourself in a forest all by yourself. Go beyond.
Plus
Plus
Ultra.
ultra.
The